Splendid evening, HT viewers. Welcome to Equity News on Equity Access, your cross-section of the stock markets and of developments in the Zimbabwean economy. Thank you for joining us as we broadcast live from our Hampton studios. I'm Ibn Mabunda. Let's get to business. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, SB Moyo, presented a document to cover the losses Zimbabwe has incurred as a result of sanctions. According to that documentation, Zimbabwe is said to have lost a good 42 billion United States dollars to illegal sanctions imposed on the country by the European Union as well as the United States of America. This is according to a statement issued by the Minister for Information and Publicity, Honorable Monica Mtsangwa, during a post-cabinet briefing held in the capital this afternoon. Let's just have a look at the feed from that to get more comprehension.
And how it's affecting the people of this country. Not just affecting the people of Zimbabwe, but how it is also impacting on the economy of the SADC region as a whole.
The Zimbabwean dollar continues to lose value against foreign currencies, having shed more than 300% since the launch of the interbank market system. Experts say the local currency will continue to depreciate as there are insufficient foreign currency reserves in the country. This is a situation that is said to improve should there be increased production in the economy as well as a scaling up of our export operations. We engaged an investment analyst during the course of the day. Let's have a look.
A markup to cover me for inflation, and the same thing happens with cost, and also you find that it then starts to feed on each other as we go. So that has been a major challenge for business, and one would obviously hope that the authorities will then find ways of how to curb the inflation. But I believe that largely the reason why there has been such loss of value is largely because we don't have enough reserves in terms of foreign currency reserves. So until that has been addressed, it is most likely that our currency will continue to lose value. And the obvious ways of addressing that particular problem is that there has to be an improvement in terms of foreign direct investment, which brings in a lot of foreign currency. There's obviously has to be mobilization of diaspora remittances, which could be very significant if they were channeled through the formal systems and they were available in the market. And obviously the other thing is that there has to be a deliberate effort towards improving our export production, because without production and without exporting, it means that we will then depend on foreign direct investment and the remittances from the diaspora. It becomes very difficult to plan. And you know, from an investment perspective, we always are looking forward and we always try to be predicting the future. But that is very difficult when we've got high levels of inflation. And so I would say that is a negative impact on a lot of companies. And also we look at the aspect of pricing itself. It becomes a challenge on how to price your product, because you've got to anticipate that costs are going to increase, and you then have to be ahead of the increase in cost. And what that does is that it keeps on feeding into inflation, because today I'm thinking that inflation is going to be up tomorrow. So I obviously then put a markup to cover me for inflation, and the same thing happens with cost, and also you find that it then starts to feed on each other as we go. So that has been a major challenge for business, and one would obviously hope that the authorities will then find ways of how to curb the inflation. But I believe that largely the reason why there has been such loss of value.
Inefficiencies at the city of Harare, as the city is failing to generate revenue out of the billboards. It seems apparent that despite a study which reveals that the city of Harare should be obtaining $9 million from the billboards, the city of Harare is currently getting nothing. This, of course, is proof to the inefficiencies that are currently in existence, which the city needs to look into. JSE listed Brainworks is seeking to clear a US $5 million debt in exchange for ordinary shares. In a statement, the company said the settlement of the accrued loans through the issue of shares will reduce the company's debt levels and lower its financial risk profile, allowing the company to save on interest costs. Egyptian inflation hits its lowest since 2013. This paves way for a new round of interest rate cuts when the central bank meets later during the course of the week. Of course, 2 days back, we did report on the fact that Egypt is looking to launch international bonds worth over 7 billion United States dollars. Jack Ma steps down as chief executive on Alibaba to focus on philanthropic activities. This concludes our evening news bulletin. Up next is a look at the markets in Markets Daily. Don't go anywhere.
Climbing to the top takes more than just hard work and smart choices. It's the passion that drives you from within, the endurance to keep going through difficult times, and having a very clear vision of how to succeed. That's what we strive for at CBZ. We're a diversified and innovative listed financial services group in Zimbabwe with a complete range of activities including banking, short and long-term insurance, asset management, and property investments. CBZ has been a pinnacle for stability in the economic landscape of Zimbabwe, stemming from our deep-rooted values, our excellent customer service delivery, and our corporate vision to strive for excellence as a global competitor. Our continuous investment in research and development will cement our promise to provide customer convenience utilizing state-of-the-art technology. Relationships are at the core of what we do. We understand, however, that strong, long-lasting partnerships are not built overnight. With over 3 decades of wealth management, we have come to understand our clients and their specific investment requirements. Our unique mix of skills ensures that investment opportunities are examined from all perspectives. The balancing rocks of Zimbabwe have weathered the elements for thousands of years and stood the test of time, like majestic reminders of the fine balance of nature. They challenge our perception of what is possible and what endures. Just as CBZ has weathered the economic storms and remained steadfast throughout the turbulence of unsettled economies. Achieving the impossible through resilience and stability, we balance the elements of hard work, dedication, and experience, making us your ideal partner for success. Climbing to the top takes more than just hard work and smart choices. It's the passion that drives you from within, the endurance to keep going through difficult times, and having a very clear vision of how to succeed. That's what we strive for at CBZ. We're a diversified and innovative listed financial services group in Zimbabwe with a complete range of activities including banking, short and long-term insurance, asset management, and property investments. CBZ has been a pinnacle for stability in the economic landscape of Zimbabwe, stemming from our deep-rooted values, our excellent customer service delivery, and our corporate vision to strive for excellence as a global competitor. Our continuous investment in research and development will cement our promise to provide customer convenience utilizing state-of-the-art technology. Relationships are at the core of what we do. We understand, however, that strong, long-lasting partnerships are not built overnight. With over 3 decades of wealth management, we have come to understand our clients and their specific investment requirements. Our unique mix of skills ensures that investment opportunities are examined from all perspectives. The balancing rocks of Zimbabwe have weathered the elements for thousands of years and stood the test of time, like majestic reminders of the fine balance of nature. They challenge our perception of what is possible and what endures. Just as CBZ has weathered the economic storms and remained steadfast throughout the turbulence of unsettled economies. Achieving the impossible through resilience and stability, we balance the elements of hard work, dedication, and experience, making us your ideal partner for success.
Welcome back, viewers. It's now time for Markets Daily, and with me to have a look at the stock markets is Chief Analyst Respect Kwenzi. Respect, good evening and welcome to Markets Daily.
Thanks. It's always my pleasure, Ivan.
Superb. Now let's get right onto it.
Sure.
The All Share Index. Let's start with the top 10 index, which gained 0.04% to 144.72 points. Mining's index pretty much stable at 262.50 points. Industrials gaining 0.03% to 542, while the All Share Index is up 0.03% at 162.94 points. Just in a nutshell, what is your assessment? Over the past few days, we saw a downward trend in terms of the stock markets, but today there is a slight shift in the positive. What could have been the influencing factor in this trend?
So I think much of the gains today, they were driven by gains in Old Mutual. Old Mutual is quite significant in that it is one of the few fungible counters of the stock market. It normally tracks the perception or the direction that is being taken by the parallel market as well. So whenever you find an Old Mutual which is firming on the local market, it speaks to a market that is that is not believing that we're going in the right direction in terms of other fundamentals. So whenever the Old Mutual price is going up, it speaks to fungibility. It speaks to an adverse Old Mutual implied rate, which is actually in line with trends that we are seeing in terms of the parallel market, where the exchange rate is now anywhere close to 14, 15 thereabout. So whenever the Old Mutual price is going up, it speaks to increased fungibility. It also speaks to an Old Mutual implied rate, which is actually adverse. So what we are seeing, I don't think that there is enough demand at the current moment to really say the market has really turned from the adverse performance that has characterized the market over the past few days. What I think is quite important is for us to check behavior around the key counters, which are your Delta, Cassava, and Econet. When these three move in a certain direction, we can really study and see whether the market has really turned. So for me, those counters were largely fallers today, both for Econet and then for Cassava as well, whereas Delta was stable. So I can't really say the market has returned to normalcy. I think the next few days might be really critical in terms of judging whether the market should head in that direction. But I think fundamentally, we are supposed to be trading in northwards.
I realize. You mentioned Old Mutual, which is our biggest rise of the day. TSL also gaining 1.27%, just as good as 10 or TSL, this is just after the tobacco selling season. Well, the volumes of course are up, but the value is down 30% against last year's performance. Possibly at this point that could have also have had an influence. Tenor, of course, they released their results, quite a positive set of results that they issued.
So I think when you look at those two counters, TSL and Tenor, they do have an exposure to tobacco. Tenor, it's quite insignificant, but if you look at the way that the new product, the EcoSheet, is running in terms of driving sales, yeah, I think it's quite commendable, and they're pushing much of those volumes to tobacco farmers. They are also heavily penetrating the regional market. Last year they earned about 0.3% in terms of overall turnover from exports, and this year they did something like 4%. So I think they could even achieve 10% by end of this year. They are ready to forgo margins just to earn that extra forex, so that they might be able to import some certain of their raw materials and so forth. So I think their strategy is quite intact. Their business model is also intact. In the years past, they've been dragged by in adverse working capital position. The insolvency position also was not really up there, and their debt to equity ratio as well coming down from 80 to about 40% in the first 6 months of the year. So I think there are quite some re-engineering that has been going on at Tenor. It's been a long time coming. False start 2 years ago, but right now I think they're quite on the right footing. So I think the market rightly appreciated that, and we saw an increase in today's price. For TSL as well, they do sell packaging material for tobacco, and tobacco, to me, I think when you look at the number of volumes this year, they were equally at the same level as last year. So obviously the packaging quantities should really be in line, and that really also speaks to that product.
Now on to the fallers. Padenga is down 2.86% at 150.56 in terms of the pricing. The Exia also losing 1.23%. And of course, you did make mention of Econet and Cassava. But of interest to me, respect, would be Padenga, despite of course the negative trend that we're seeing here. But I think this is quite a stock to look forward to. It's quite an interesting one because look, they are moving on to acquire to acquire controlling stake in Delaglo Investments and do with $20 million US, and these are guys who have been exporting their crocodile skins to Europe as well as to the United States, and now also they are acquiring a business which is also with an export orientation. And I think, given what's actually playing out on the local market, this would give them some sort of hedging against the risk that is actually playing out.
Yes, I think the biggest drawback when you're looking at the Delaglo investment, it comes from there's definitely some interested. I mean, when you're looking at the fact that some of the directors from Padenga actually had ready interest in that other investment. Sometimes you could easily deduce that they had a ready motive to try to siphon Padenga into investing in an investment that might not really be so beneficial for Padenga. But I think those are just the fears of some of the investors, and they're justifiably so. But what I think is that Padenga's ready operations, they're quite firm. When you're looking at the crocodile the skin business, it's quite lucrative. It's hedged from what's happening in Zim, and over the past years, of course, the supply issues, I mean, in terms of the demand issues, they've been tightening of measures around Europe and in some of the markets, but I still believe that their model was quite intact. The new investment, of course, is lucrative in that it's supposed to earn the money at a certain point in USD, but it remains to be seen. There's still gotta be an investment in both Pickstone and Eureka, so it remains to be seen.
Interesting. Now let's move on to how the forex market is actually played out. From the figures, the parallel market closed at 13.91 against the dollar, while the old mutual implied rate just below that at 13.5 against the dollar, while the interbank market inched from 10.4 yesterday and is now sitting at 11.6. What is your general assessment in terms of what we're seeing playing out on that market? Are we likely to see convergence? We did see what seems.
I think I've been on record to say it's convergence. To me, it doesn't mean anything. Of course, it doesn't benefit the ordinary man in the streets to do away with the black market anyway. It doesn't in any kind of way. What I think is quite important is to see or to determine whether we're heading in the right direction or we're heading towards stability or something like that. But what's on the ground right now is it's pure carnage. There's no going back. The price of the local money is losing value by the day, and what we are seeing on the interbank market here, trying to close the gap, it still shows you that there's still movement upwards. And no matter how much there's an effort to try to combat that gap, as long as there's a perception that fundamentals are weak, as long as there is a perception that money supply is going to grow, as long as there's a perception that there is going to be misgovernance in the economy, corruption and whatnot, all these things will be combined and factored into the price of our local currency. And in as much as I can perceive, it's one way. It's gonna be losses up until maybe that currency is possibly debunked.
What can we do to achieve that stability?
I think my prescription to that is we only need to go back to dollarization. I don't think there is another way out of it. Why? Because people are not readily conditioned to appreciate that a local currency could possibly stabilize at when macro pillars are pivoted in some way. In this case, there is that negative perception around players in the market, around the general populace, and as long as that perception is negative, no matter how much you try to move other variables, it's going to take you long to achieve that stability. And before you even achieve that stability, you might actually lose it, because I mean, it's not all factors that are constant here. We've got a budget to take care of, and whenever the exchange rate worsens, you also have to tweak your budget. Or when you tweak your budget, you're actually impacting on money supply. You're affecting other variables in the matrix. And when I think our problems now, they've even been escalated. Why? Because on the other side, we have what we are anticipating to be a recession in this year, negative growth, whereas on the other hand, we also have got inflation that is coming out of losses in both the exchange rate and whatnot. So trying to combat these two using the present policy measures, I don't think it's achievable. You either have to stabilize one and then focus on pushing the other, but there's no way you can have policies that drag or that push down inflation, whereas they also lift productivity. Such phenomena are very unconventional, and it's going to be very difficult. Plus the perception factor, which I don't think is readily in place.
Sounds like as a nation we are headed for a roller coaster ride. Well, thank you so much, Respect, for the perspectives. Thank you, viewers, for staying with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and to visit our informative website www.equityaccess.net. The Equity Access team and I, Danke and Asante Sana.